Hi everyone, welcome back. We've got a brand new story to share with you, so let's begin. My name is Carl. When my girlfriend declared during an argument that she's opening up our relationship without any mutual agreement first, I pulled a move that made her regret her hasty announcement, and I'm still amazed at how quickly everything unraveled. But to understand how we got there, you need to know what led up to that fateful argument, the dynamics that had been festering beneath the surface, and why her half-sister became the catalyst for everything that followed. Nadia and I met during my final year of college. She was magnetic, confident, and commanded attention whenever she entered. At first, that energy was intoxicating. She knew what she wanted, she wasn't afraid to go after it, and for a while, I felt lucky to be the person she chose. We spent most weekends together, and that's when I started to see the cracks. Nadia needed to be the center of attention at all times. She'd find a way to pull me away or create some kind of scene. If I made plans with friends, she'd guilt me about not spending enough time with her, even though she'd go out with her own friends multiple times a week without a second thought. The double standards were exhausting, but I told myself that relationships required compromise and things would get better with time. They didn't get better. Over the next 2 years, Nadia's behavior escalated. She'd pick fights over the most minor things. She'd give me the silent treatment for days, then act like nothing had happened without ever apologizing. She'd flirt with other guys right in front of me, then accuse me of being jealous and controlling when I brought it up. She'd make plans without consulting me, then get angry when I couldn't drop everything to accommodate her. I found myself walking on eggshells constantly, trying to anticipate her moods and keep the peace. My friends asked me why I put up with it, but I'd invested so much time, so much emotional energy, that the idea of starting over felt overwhelming. So I stayed, and I endured, and I tolerated her excess because I kept hoping that the woman I fell in love with would come back. Nadia lived with her half-sister Amber. They shared the same father, but had different mothers, and from what I gathered, there was a complicated family history. Amber was 2 years younger than Nadia, and according to Nadia, she'd always been the golden child, who could do no wrong in their father's eyes. Nadia resented that. She resented that Amber had gotten a full scholarship to a better university. She resented that Amber had a stable graphic design job, while Nadia was still bouncing between freelance gigs. She resented that Amber was naturally effortless in ways that Nadia had to work hard to project. It was clear from the beginning that Nadia saw Amber as competition, even though Amber never seemed to engage in that dynamic. The first time I met Amber, she was quiet, polite, and had this calm presence that was the complete opposite of Nadia's intensity. Where Nadia was all sharp edges and loud opinions, Amber was soft-spoken and thoughtful. She offered me a drink, and then mostly stayed out of the way while Nadia directed traffic. I didn't think much of her at first, but over the following years, as I came around and spent more time at their apartment, I started to notice things about Amber. I noticed the way Amber would listen when I talked, not just wait for her turn to speak. I noticed how she'd remember small details I'd mentioned in passing. I noticed how she'd smile at me when Nadia wasn't looking. And I noticed how Nadia noticed. Nadia's jealousy toward Amber intensified after she noticed how calm our interactions were. She'd make snide comments about Amber's clothes, her cooking, her friends. She'd constantly compare herself to Amber, always needing reassurance that she was prettier, more innovative, more successful. And she became hyper-aware of any interaction between Amber and me. If Amber and I were in the kitchen, talking while Nadia was in the shower, Nadia would come out and immediately insert herself into the conversation, physically positioning herself between us. It was exhausting to watch, and I felt bad for Amber, who seemed to be trying her best to keep the peace and not rock the boat. But here's the thing I couldn't ignore, no matter how much I tried. Amber was into me. She never said anything directly, never crossed any lines, but the energy was there. I could feel it in the way she'd find excuses to be in the same room when I visited. It wasn't overt, and if you weren't paying attention, you might not even notice. But I noticed. And Nadia definitely noticed. She'd accuse Amber of trying to steal me, which Amber would deny with a hurt expression. She'd accuse me of encouraging Amber's attention, which I deny because I genuinely wasn't trying to. But the tension was always there, simmering beneath the surface, waiting for a spark to ignite it. After about 3 years of dating, Nadia's behavior had reached a breaking point. She was staying out late without telling me where she was going. She was being secretive with her phone, angling it away from me when she texted. She was picking fights over nothing, then storming out and disappearing for days. I suspected she was either cheating or laying the groundwork to cheat, but I didn't have proof, and honestly, I was too tired to play detective. I was emotionally checked out, going through the motions, trying to figure out how to end things without causing a massive explosion. But I didn't have to figure out because Nadia decided for me. We were at my apartment. Nadia and I had been arguing about something trivial, I don't even remember what, and it escalated the way our arguments always did. She was yelling, I was trying to stay calm, and then out of nowhere, she said it. You know what, Carl? I'm opening up our relationship status. She thought I'd panic. She thought I'd beg her to reconsider. She thought I'd fold and do whatever it took to keep her, because that's what I'd always done before. But the months of tolerating her disrespect, the exhaustion of constantly trying to please someone who was never satisfied, and the realization that I deserved better than this brought clarity. I looked at her, standing there with her arms crossed and that self-satisfied expression on her face, and I smiled. This timing works out beautifully, I said. The smile dropped from her face. She hadn't expected that. She'd expected resistance, emotion, desperation. Instead, I was calm and agreeable because I was done. She tried to backtrack immediately, saying she didn't mean it like that she just wanted us to have more freedom, that we could set boundaries. But I wasn't interested in hearing it. I told her that if she wanted an open relationship, we had one, and I was going to take full advantage of it. She looked confused, maybe even a little worried, but she doubled down, probably thinking I was bluffing. Fine, she said. Do whatever you want. So I did. The next day, I texted Amber. I told her that Nadia had opened our relationship, and I asked if she wanted to get coffee with me. I knew it was a bold move. I knew it would cause chaos. But I also knew that Amber had been interested in me for a long time, and I wanted to send Nadia an obvious message. She was replaceable. Amber responded within minutes. She said yes. We made plans to meet at a cafe downtown the following afternoon. I won't lie, I was nervous. Not because I was worried about Nadia's reaction, but because I wasn't sure what I was walking into with Amber. Was this just about proving a point to Nadia, or was there something fundamental here? I didn't have the answer yet, but I was willing to find out. When I arrived at the cafe, Amber arrived a few minutes after. She smiled when she saw me. We talked for hours about ourselves. She told me about her work, her dreams of starting her own design studio, and her love of photography. I told her about my job in marketing, my frustration with feeling stuck in a career that didn't excite me, my love of old movies and terrible puns. We laughed. We connected. And somewhere in the middle of that conversation, I realized that this wasn't just about sending a message to Nadia. This was about recognizing that someone right in front of me actually valued me, listened to me, and made me feel like I mattered. By the time we left the cafe, we'd made plans to see each other again. I didn't hear from Nadia that day, which was unusual. Normally, she'd text me constantly, checking in or picking fights or sending me random memes. But there was nothing. I figured she was out with whomever she'd been planning to see now that she'd permitted herself to cheat guilt-free. I didn't care. I went home, ordered takeout, and watched a movie. For the first time in months, I felt light. The next morning, I woke up to my phone buzzing nonstop on my nightstand. I grabbed it with one eye still closed and saw Nadia's name flashing on the screen. 1 call, 2 calls, 3 calls. By the time I was fully awake and sitting up in bed, she'd called me 7 times in a row. It wasn't even 8 in the morning yet. I stared at the screen and just let it ring out. I sent it straight to voicemail. I wasn't ready to deal with whatever storm was coming, and honestly, I didn't feel like I owed her an immediate response. She was the one who opened this door, so she could wait on the other side of it for a minute. I set my phone face down on the bed and went to brush my teeth, trying to start my day like a normal person. But by the time I came back from the bathroom, my phone screen was still lit up. Text after text came in. I picked it up and scrolled through them. Where are you? We need to talk. Call me back right now. Carl, I'm serious. Answer your phone. The messages kept coming, each one more demanding than the last, and I could practically read them in her voice. I didn't respond. I put my phone on silent, got dressed, made myself some coffee, and left for work. I had a meeting scheduled for 10, and I wasn't about to let Nadia's meltdown derail my entire morning. I'd dealt with her drama for 3 years. I could handle a few hours of silence. The meeting ran longer than expected, and afterward, I grabbed lunch with my buddy. We went to this burger place we both liked, and I filled him in on everything that had happened with Nadia. He wasn't surprised. My friend told me that I deserved better and needed to get out before she completely drained me. When I told him about the date with Nadia's sister, he actually laughed. We talked, we ate, and for a solid hour, I didn't think about Nadia at all. It felt like I was finally taking my life back. But when I pulled my phone out to check the time, my stomach dropped a little. 23 missed calls. All from Nadia. I scrolled through the notifications and saw a wall of text messages, each one more unhinged than the last. The early ones were still trying to sound calm, as if she were just checking in. But as the hours went on and I didn't respond, the tone shifted. And then, at the very bottom, the one that told me exactly why she was losing her mind. I know you were with my sister. What the fuck, Carl? Someone had seen us, or her sister had said something. I didn't know. But Nadia knew, and she was spiraling. I sat in my car in the parking lot for a minute, deliberating that last message. Part of me wanted to just leave it, to let her sit with her anger, her jealousy, and whatever else she was feeling. But another part of me knew that if I didn't call her back, this would only get worse. She'd show up at my apartment, or do something crazy and public that would make this whole situation even messier than it already was. So I took a breath, hit the call button, and waited. She picked up on the first ring. She'd been sitting there with her phone in her hand, waiting for me to reach out, and the second I did, she pounced. She didn't even say hello. She just started screaming. She called me every name she could think of. She said I was a liar, a cheater, a snake, a coward. She said I'd betrayed her, that I'd gone behind her back, that I was trying to hurt her on purpose. She said I was disgusting for going after her sister, that I was sick, that I was pathetic. She went on, barely stopping to breathe, and I just sat there and let her get it out. I didn't interrupt. I didn't defend myself. I just waited for her to run out of steam, because I knew that eventually she would. And when she finally paused, probably to catch her breath or think of more insults to throw at me, I spoke. Nadia, I said, you're the one who opened the relationship. You said it yourself. You made that decision without asking me, without talking to me, without caring how I felt about it. So I don't know why you're surprised that I'm actually taking you up on it. That stopped her for a second. I could hear her breathing hard on the other end of the line, like she was trying to process what I just said. Then she fired back, her voice still loud, but now with a defensive edge. That doesn't mean you get to go after my sister, Carl. That's not what I meant, and you know it. I almost laughed. So let me get this straight, I said. You get to decide that we're in an open relationship, but then you also get to choose whom I can and can't see? You get to make all the rules, and I just have to follow them? That's not how this works, Nadia. You don't get to open the door and then be mad when I walk through it. She didn't like that. She started yelling again, saying I was twisting her words, that I was being manipulative, that I knew exactly what I was doing, and I was doing it to hurt her. She said she was going to make sure everyone knew what kind of person I really was. She said she was going to tell her sister that I was just using her to get back at Nadia, that I didn't actually care about her, that I was playing games. She was throwing out threats left and right, trying to scare me, try and make me back down. But I didn't. I stayed calm. I stayed in control. And I said, if that's really how you feel, Nadia, then maybe we shouldn't be together at all. The line went quiet, although I could still hear her breathing. She just realized that this conversation wasn't going the way she thought it would. She'd expected me to apologize, to beg for forgiveness, to promise I'd never see her sister again. She'd expected me to fold, the way I always had before. But I wasn't folding this time, and she could hear it in my voice. When she spoke again, the anger was gone. Her voice got softer, shakier, as if she were on the verge of tears. "Carl, wait," she said. "I didn't mean that. I'm just upset. I don't want to lose you." She started backtracking on everything she just said. She said the open relationship thing was a mistake, that she'd been feeling insecure and didn't know what she was doing, and that she wasn't thinking clearly. She said she loved me, that she didn't want this to be over, that we could fix it if I just gave her a chance. She begged me to come over so we could talk in person and work it out face to face. I could tell she was crying now, doing that thing where you try to speak through tears and your words come out all broken and uneven. But I wasn't moved. I'd heard this speech before. I'd heard it a dozen times over the past 3 years, every time she pushed me too far and realized I was close to walking away. She'd cry, she'd apologize, she'd promise to change, and I'd believe her because I wanted to believe her. I wanted to think that this time would be different, that she'd actually follow through, that things would get better. But they never did. She'd be good for a week, maybe 2, and then she'd go right back to the same patterns, the same disrespect, the same games. I was done with the cycle. I was done with the false hope. I was done with her. "Nadia," I said, cutting her off mid-sentence, "there's nothing to talk about. You made your choice when you decided to open the relationship. I made mine when I went out with your sister. This is over. We're over." She tried to argue, her voice rising again, but I didn't let her finish. I just said, "We're done," and I hung up. My phone started ringing again immediately. I didn't answer. I opened my messages and saw new texts coming in, one after another, each one more frantic than the last. "Please don't do this. Carl, please. We can fix this. I'm sorry. Please just talk to me." I didn't read the rest. I went into my settings, found her contact, and blocked her number. The notifications stopped. The calls stopped. It was quiet. Then I opened every social media app one had, found her profile on each one, and blocked her there too. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all of it. I didn't want to see her posts. I didn't want to see her comments. I didn't want her to have any way to reach me or keep tabs on what I was doing. I was cutting her out completely, and it felt like taking off a heavy coat I'd been wearing for way too long. Amber reached out to me that evening. She said Nadia had confronted her, accusing her of trying to steal me, of being a terrible sister, of ruining her life. Amber had stood her ground. She told Nadia that she didn't owe her anything, that Nadia had treated me terribly for years, and that if Nadia had really cared about me, she wouldn't have played games with our relationship. She said Nadia had stormed off and that she didn't know what would happen next, but she wanted me to see that she didn't regret going on that date with me. I told her I felt the same way. Over the next few weeks, the more distance I put between myself and Nadia, the clearer everything became. It was like I'd been living in a fog for 3 years, and suddenly the air was clean, and I could see properly for the first time. I started noticing things about our relationship that I'd either ignored or convinced myself were normal. I'd normalized so much unhealthy behavior because I genuinely believed that relationships were supposed to be hard work. Everyone says that, right? You hear it all the time. Relationships take effort. Love isn't always easy. You have to fight for what you want. And I took that advice to heart. I thought the constant arguments meant we were passionate. I thought her jealousy meant she cared. I felt her need to control everything meant she was invested in us. But what I was actually doing was confusing toxicity with commitment. I was mistaking manipulation for love. I was accepting disrespect and calling it a compromise. She'd blow up at me for forgetting to text her back within 5 minutes, and I'd apologize and promise to do better. She'd flirt with other guys right in front of me at parties, and when I brought it up later, she'd tell me I was being insecure and controlling, and somehow I ended up apologizing for that too. She'd make significant decisions about our relationship without consulting me, and when I tried to discuss it, she'd accuse me of not caring about her opinion. Every single time, I'd back down. I'd swallow my frustration. I'd tell myself that this was just what you did when you loved someone. But being alone in those first few weeks after the breakup, I began to realize I'd been lying to myself. Love shouldn't make you feel like you're constantly walking through a minefield. It shouldn't make you anxious or exhausted or like you're never good enough. It should require you to shrink yourself down or silence your needs or accept treatment that makes you feel worthless. Our relationship hadn't been complex because all relationships are complicated. It had been hard because Nadia made it hard. She created drama where none was needed. She picked fights over nothing because she liked the attention and the control it gave her. She kept me off balance on purpose, so I'd always be trying to win her approval. And I'd let her do it because I thought that's what commitment looked like. The more I sat with that realization, the angrier I got at myself. How had I let it go on for so long? How had I convinced myself that this was acceptable? My friends had tried to tell me, and I'd brushed them off and changed the subject because I didn't want to admit the answer was no. But looking back, everyone around me could see what I couldn't, or what I refused to see. And now that I was finally seeing it clearly, I felt like an idiot for taking so long to wake up. But I also felt relieved. Genuinely, deeply relieved. I didn't have to perform anymore. I didn't have to monitor my words, manage her emotions, or brace myself for the subsequent explosion. I could exist, make plans without asking permission, and spend an evening watching whatever I wanted on TV without someone criticizing my choices. I could go to bed without dreading the morning because I didn't know what version of Nadia I'd be dealing with when I woke up. If breaking up with someone makes you feel lighter instead of heartbroken, that tells you everything you need to know about the relationship. Nadia, on the other hand, was not handling the breakup well. At all. At first, she tried the indirect approach. She'd have mutual friends reach out to me with messages like, "Hey, Nadia wanted me to tell you she's really sorry and she wants to talk," or "Nadia is going through a rough time and she just needs closure." I ignored all of it. I didn't respond to the friends, and I made it clear that I wasn't interested in serving as a messenger for someone who couldn't respect my decision to end things. Then she escalated. About a week after I blocked her number, she showed up at my apartment. I was home, and I heard the knock, and when I looked through the peephole, there she was, standing in the hallway with her arms crossed and that determined look on her face that I knew all too well. She knocked again, louder this time, and called out my name. "Carl, I know you're in there. Open the door. We need to talk." I stood there on the other side, completely silent. She knocked a few more times, her voice getting more frustrated with each attempt. "This is ridiculous, Carl. You can't just ignore me forever. Open the door." But I didn't. As for me, I don't regret how things ended. Could I have handled it differently? Maybe. Could I have broken up with Nadia before going on that date with Amber? Probably. But I don't think it would have changed the outcome. Nadia needed to learn that actions have consequences, that you can't treat people like they're disposable and expect them to stick around. She thought she had all the power in our relationship, and she thought that opening the relationship would give her even more control. Instead, it gave me the freedom to walk away, and it showed her that I wasn't going to tolerate her behavior anymore. Looking back, Nadia's biggest mistake wasn't opening the relationship. It was assuming that I had no other options, that I'd be so desperate to keep her that I'd accept whatever scraps of affection she was willing to throw my way. She underestimated me, and when I chose Amber, it shattered Nadia's self-perception. She'd always been the one in control, the one calling the shots, the one who decided when things began and ended. But this time, I took that power away from her, and she couldn't handle it. I haven't spoken to Nadia since that final phone call. I heard through mutual friends that she's dating someone new, and I genuinely hope she's learned from what happened between us. I hope she's treating her new partner better than she treated me. I hope she's worked on the insecurities and the need for control that poisoned our relationship. But that's not my responsibility anymore. I did my time, I paid my dues, and I walked away with my dignity intact. The whole experience taught me a lot about myself. It taught me that I'd been settling for far too long, accepting treatment that I never should have tolerated. It taught me that sometimes the person you think you can't live without is actually the person holding you back from finding real happiness. And it taught me that when someone shows you who they really are, you should believe them the first time, not wait around hoping they'll change. So when Nadia declared that she was opening our relationship without any mutual agreement, thinking she was asserting her dominance and putting me in my place, she actually did me the biggest favor of my life. She permitted me to walk away. She gave me the push I needed to stop settling and start choosing myself. And when I responded that the timing worked out beautifully, I meant it. Because it did, it worked out beautifully for me. As for Nadia, I hope she eventually realizes that the person she should have been competing with all along wasn't her half-sister. It was the version of herself that drove away someone who genuinely cared about her. That's the real tragedy in all of this. And that's something only she can fix.